We have a 3-game slate on Sunday for $1 million, and we're going to break it down. One more game than Saturday, a Thanksgiving slate all over again, 3-game slate. Let's break it down, not now, but right now. So ladies and gentlemen, you beautiful fellas out there, today, here is where I'm at on the quarterbacks, and we'll start in salary order, and you get it up top, and it's a very interesting price slate. I think there's 3 ways you can go, 3 quarterbacks who stand out above the rest, and the other 3 I'm not really going to touch. And up top, Patrick Mahomes, I expect to be the highest owned quarterback, but there's a very interesting thing coming in right now early on. Mahomes is currently coming in at 28% owned in my ownership projections, but Tom Brady right after that, who's only $100 less, is coming in at 24% owned. So there's not much of a difference on this 3-game, 6 quarterback, 6-team slate, right? Not much of a difference in their ownership, which is very strange to me because it looks like, Tyreek was at practice. It looks like the Chiefs are fully healthy, and we know Tom Brady is not fully healthy in terms of his receivers. Maybe he gets back Fournette, but he's not getting back AB and Godwin. We also know that there's been indications that Tampa Bay is expecting to run the ball a little more, and if Fournette comes back, and also Giovanni Bernard is at practice, yes, Giovanni Bernard is there, more of a pass-catching guy, but if they get their backs back, well, you might see a little bit more running. So I'm looking at this right now, and in terms of projected pass attempts in this game, I have Mahomes for about 6 more, so if I'm looking at a similar price range, I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes over Tom Brady, and I also just think that he has the highest ceiling on the slate, and I shouldn't really shock anybody. Now, this next range is the $6,000 range where you have Dallas and you have Philly. You have Dak Prescott, you have Jalen Hurts, and I think that Dak Prescott, this Cowboys stack, I don't know if it'll end up being the highest owned. Right now, it's not coming in with ownership. Last time we see Dak, he's out there, and he's going for 5 touchdown passes, almost 300 yards passing, right in a game against Philly where a lot of people said, oh, they don't have much to play for. No, they had potentially the 2 or 3 seed to play for. So Dak Prescott at $6,700, I am firmly interested in right now, right? A 27-team implied total, that's a very sturdy total for a game that has the highest total on the slate at 50.5. The matchup against San Francisco cannot be any better for both Dak and all of the pass catchers in this offense, right? The defensive backs for San Francisco are god-awful. It's the probably worst part of their team. So I'm in on Dak Prescott, who I have projected for basically the same points as Tom Brady, but I get a significant price discount for this small of a slate of $500 off of him. Jalen Hurts is the final guy that I can go to and say, okay, when I look at this slate at $6,100, do I want to get in on Jalen Hurts? I can run him naked. I could pair him up with Dallas Goedert, who's expected to be back, and or Devonta Smith, right? There's a lot of ways you can go with Jalen Hurts because he's cheap, and honestly, all of his pass catchers on this slate we'll get to, they're cheap as well. So I think Jalen Hurts is interesting because when you're looking at the slate, he's the only dude who has his skill set, right? The mobile upside. The upside of, yeah, he's going to be a massive underdog. Yeah, he doesn't have a great team total of only 20 points, but that mobile upside of 70 rushing yards and a touchdown, the 100-yard rushing bonus. Nobody else on this slate has it. Mahomes can maybe go for 20 to 30 yards for you on the ground, which makes him even more appealing. But in terms of a lower-owned guy who's also cheaper, yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is in play. And then after that, I'm not really going to Jimmy. I'm definitely not going to Big Ben personally with a 17 implied team total. So I'm thinking the game theory of this, Mahomes, if you're telling me the 2 highest owned quarterbacks are going to be Mahomes and Brady at similar prices, I'm just taking Mahomes in his ceiling and his secure and healthy pass-catching core, also expected to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire back. And then in that $6,000 range, it looks like Dak and Jalen Hurts. I would say that Mahomes is overall the best ceiling play on the slate. If you're looking for the best overall play, factoring in what the price points are, I think that Dallas and Dak and triple stacking that looks really appealing early on. Now let's transition from the quarterbacks to the running back position, and it'll start up top with Najee Harris, who, look, none of the running backs are expensive this week. It's $6,600 Najee Harris, who ended the year leading the NFL in receptions and targets at the running back position, opportunity share around 90%, which is just insane. We've never seen things like that, but you saw it this year, and I would bet that that number goes down in terms of targets and receptions if Big Ben leaves, and we expect that. Najee Harris at $6,600, he just looks fine. He looks okay. The ownership coming in on him right now at 32% is okay. The price tag's not expensive. Do I expect a lot of points from Pittsburgh? No, a 17-point implied total as 12.5-point underdogs. Can you see Najee have an 8-catch game for 60 yards and in the passing game alone get you there? For sure, you definitely can. But it's difficult to run on Kansas City since they ended up acquiring Melvin Ingram and push Chris Jones back to the interior, and Frank Clark started to actually play well this year. So it's difficult to run on that team, I will say that. So Najee Harris at 32% ownership, or he'll probably battle somewhere around the second highest on running back on the slate. I just go meh. I just go okay. I understand the opportunities are going to be there. Nobody else is going to threaten his workload. He's in play, but he's not a priority for me. This next range are where the priorities start to come into play, starting with Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe you get Tony Pollard back. Maybe it was a precaution holding him out for week 18. We'll track that news, but $6,100 Ezekiel Elliott, even if Tony Pollard is back, Ezekiel Elliott is still a guy that's pushing a 70% opportunity share. And obviously during the middle of the season, that dropped a little bit because he was dealing with an injury, which apparently now, after dealing dealing with that knee bruise for nearly 2 to 2.5 months. Apparently, he's feeling much better now. And you got to see that in the final game of the year, week 18, when they're dominating a team. Zeke is still in there playing 60% of the snaps, seeing 23 opportunities in that game. He only goes for 10 fantasy points, which might keep his ownership a little bit lower. But this price tag of Zeke almost hitting the 5K range on a 3-game slate, when he's going to come into this game as a 3-point favorite at this price tag, yes, I'm going to be interested. I'm also going to be interested on the opposite side of this game. Elijah Mitchell is not practicing on Wednesday, but fully expected to play. They're just giving his knee as much recovery as it can take, as that flared up during the middle of the season. Yeah, Elijah Mitchell here at $5,700. Eli Mitchell, I like it. He's an underdog, not a great team total. He's going to be getting some receiving game work. Jeff Wilson has been non-existent in that offense. Hasty is back to an extent, but look, he's in love. He's in love, Kyle Shanahan. He's absolutely in love. Never has he found the running back. Most start to an extent, but not really. Never has he found the running back where he says, I'm going to pound you 20-plus times a game for that. Pause. That sounded bad. 20-plus times a game. I'm going to give you the rock. Not as bad. I'm going to give you the rock, and you can go out there and you can have some fun with it, right? So that's what you're getting out of him. And this is nowhere near as difficult as a matchup as the Rams defensive line. And I know this is a good defensive line in terms of generating pressure, but there's no Aaron Donald in the middle of this defensive line. There's no defensive tackle that is just an absolute force. So Elijah Mitchell is also in play. The final guy here who actually practiced on Wednesday and is trending in the right direction to play, and Ronald Jones was ruled doubtful, is Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette is the best play in the slate. He's the best play in the slate. I don't care what the ownership number is. He's the best play in the slate. I have him coming in as the highest on running back at 44%. That's 56% too low. Leonard Fournette is the best play in the slate. Leonard Fournette, I know Giovanni Bernard is returning, or at least started to practice. We'll see if that happens. But even before Giovanni Bernard got hurt, Leonard Fournette was already operating as the full pass catching back, right? He was already in there. He can pick up pass protections. They can audible, and he's their favorite and best used running back on the ground in between the tackles. And then he's been shown to not only have receptions in the backfield, on dump offs, on screens. He's also been there out wide. They motion him out wide, and he actually makes plays. And not only has he been in the backfield catching these dump offs, but they motion him out wide sometimes, and he makes plays. So I'm not too concerned about Gio Bernard. Now, if there's no Ronald Jones and Gio Bernard is the straight backup, that looks a little bit more appealing. But in terms of overall receptions, overall volume, Leonard Fournette is the best play on the slate. He arguably might be the highest scoring player on the slate. He's barely missing that on my projections. He's like a top 3 projected play for me, including the quarterbacks. So Fournette I love, and then the range starts to drop off a little bit. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's banged up, although he's expected to play. I have him in yellow here in case you're potentially going to be coming into this one injured, but he's expected to get back to practice, but so is Darrell Williams. So you might see like this close to 50-50 split where they're each seeing around 10 opportunities. They are 12.5-point favorites, though. The running in between the tackles against Pittsburgh, not the greatest spot. So is there enough receptions? It's probably a touchdown or bust situation for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which keeps him in play. I am interested in Tony Pollard, just like I was last week until he ended up getting ruled out on those 2-game slates on Saturday. If Tony Pollard is in for this 3-game slate, if he's in and good to go, I do think they're going to lean on Zeke, but Tony Pollard is skilled. Tony Pollard is going to see 10 to 12 touches, and on 10 to 12 touches, Tony Pollard can rack up 100 total yards and or a touchdown. And the only reason you mention Tony Pollard, or at least he's worth mentioning, is because he's relatively cheap at $5,300 for this slate, and he's only 12% owned. So you're going to get low ownership on this guy who's talented. He remains in play for me. He's not an elite play, but he remains in play. Darrell Williams, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is indeed back, not that appealing to me. The final running back, and I'll scroll here so you can see the rest, the final running back that looks appealing to me is whatever happens in Philadelphia. They're hopeful, which doesn't sound great. It's not, oh yeah, he's going to be back like they're saying about Leonard Fournette. They're hopeful that Miles Sanders returns. That doesn't feel great. We'll have to track that news. At just $5,000 if he returns. Earlier in the year, numbers don't really matter to me against Tampa Bay, what he did, because they were a totally different team then. They've now transitioned, and so was Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is getting some guys back on defense, but Philadelphia was not running as much as they are now. If Sanders returns, there is the concern that he can just get re-injured here. If Sanders is out, you go to $4,500 Boston Scott, who's expected to return, and $4,300 Jordan Howard would look a little bit more appealing. Other than that, track Giovanni Bernard's status. I'm not expecting insane usage for Bernard, but yes, 2-minute drills. And if Tampa Bay was to get down, which they're not expected to as 9-point favorites, but if they were to get down, that's where you can see him come into play. Now, before we get into the wide receiver position, I want to let you know about the sponsors of the program today. The sponsor of the program is Dibs.io, and they're blowing up right now. It's a real-time fractional card market, and you can accrue value off of owning a fractional share of a card. Yes, it's a 24/7 marketplace, and they've been gracious enough to give us a free pack. And you can see in here, I got shares. Oh, yes, I have shares of Mr. Aaron Rodgers, the bad man himself, and a bunch of other people. But let's open up this free pack and see what we end up getting in here. Again, it is a fractional share of these players, and potentially not even just players, but some other things are now added into there. They have NFT versions of this. They have Pokemon cards and things along those lines. So let's see as this bad boy starts to open up. You get a little bit of music. Bam. So the first one we get up in here is Trae Young. Not too bad for a Trae Young 2018. And if you all know, if you don't know now, you know 2018, the rookie year of Trae Young, who if it wasn't for Luka Doncic would have been the rookie of the year. The next asset in here, oh baby, this man's playing this weekend. This man's playing Mr. Joshua Allen. And by the way, By the way, if you're not paying attention to the sidebar that's just down there, you get, if you use the code SAL when you sign up and deposit, you get a free Frac pack. So you get a free one, right? And not only that, if you sign up before the games end this weekend, so you have for the rest of this week, if you sign up with that code SAL, they'll give you an additional free Frac pack. And these are actually worth something. So go in there, take advantage of it. It's a ton of fun. It starts to become very addicting. Let's see who else we get in this pack. So we get a 2011 Mike Trout. I mean, we're just getting the best of the best. And now you can see we own fractional shares. So we're owning less than a half a percentage here, which might not sound like a lot. Of course, it's fractional shares. That's the whole point. Your entire collection over time becomes more diversified. Instead of just owning one Mike Trout card and whatever he does, it goes up and down for, you're owning shares of potentially hundreds of different players in Pokemon. And when you have all of that, it comes together with a nice diversification. If anybody knows anything about owning assets, right here, you can see the next asset we have. If you know anything about owning assets, it said you want to be diversified. A 2017, so we're getting some basketball players, some baseball. We're getting a nice away. We have a Donovan Mitchell rookie card in there as well, which he believes he was the rookie of the year that year over Ben Simmons because Simmons didn't play enough. But 1990, look at this. So here you go. Here's a Pokemon card, which I used to be a Yu-Gi-Oh, a massive Yu-Gi-Oh collector back in the day. My brother collected Pokemons. We'll have to ask him if there's anything here in this 1999 Pokemon card. The Nindo King. Anybody out there know about that? But yes, I'm a big Yu-Gi-Oh guy, but I'm not against if something's making money. At this time, hey, all those Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are in my drawer at home, by this time, they're going to be worth something big. So there you go. There's our full collection. I am now adding to my lovely collection here. That is dibs.io. Again, if you use the code SAL, it'll be linked up down below, or you go to dibs.io. You use the code SAL when you sign up, and if you deposit, and here's the thing, you get not just one free pack, but if you do it this week, by the end of this weekend, you only have like 2 days, you'll get an additional free Frac pack, a fractional share of ownership. Wide receiver position now, I honestly think Deebo Samuel can have his way. I think he can have his way if he wanted to with a Trevion Diggs. I really do. And I think that the way that they're going to use him in the backfield and all over, it's going to be good for Deebo Samuel. The problem is he's $7,900. He's definitely not out of play, but he's $7,900 for a guy whose target share has dipped as of late. For Ayuk, who has continued to come on. George Kittle has kind of taken a step back these last couple of games. If he was to ever, which I expect him to, break loose a little bit in a matchup, that obviously hurts Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel in play, but not as elite of a play because of the price tag. Tyreek Hill, he was spotted at practice. I'm expecting him to play. That's why he's in yellow. $7,300 currently projecting out as the highest owned wide receiver on the slate. Also has the highest ceiling. Also has the number 1 point per dollar value. So Tyreek Hill is in play for me. Now you start thinking about lineup construction here. And if you're going to play Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, it's going to be probably the highest owned stack this week. Now there's ways to get around that by just throwing in maybe a Clyde Edwards-Helaire who will only be 20% owned. And now you have an interesting build here, right? You can throw in, you can try and afford Kelsey. It starts to become difficult. That's why I said Dallas looks a little bit more appealing to me from how you can stack them all up, because all of their pass catchers, including Zeke, including the tight end Schultz, we'll get to him, are cheap. So I'm kind of anchoring right now on between Dallas and KC for my main stack. But if you go KC, you get Tyreek in there. I think it makes it a little bit easier of a decision for you. Then I kind of get to this range, which appears to be somewhat of a dead range for me. I think Mike Evans looks fine, but Darius Slay is not the greatest of matchups, and I think this team in Tampa Bay is going to run the ball a little bit more. Mike Evans does not have any zone beater abilities, in my opinion, like a Rob Gronkowski, like a Leonard Fournette or a Gio Bernard would coming back. $6,700 Deontay Johnson, I just don't know how you can pay for this all that much. It's not like you're getting an ownership discount on Deontay Johnson. I have him coming in at around 25%. I mean, I guess you're getting an ownership discount on him versus like Tyreek Hill, on him maybe versus CeeDee Lamb a little bit. But Deontay Johnson at $6,700, but a 17-point implied team total here, right? I mean, you can pile up receptions while you're trailing, sure. A 17 implied team total with tough matchups on the outside, not running downfield routes. He's more expensive than Amari Cooper, Devonta Smith, CeeDee Lamb, who have better target depth, who have better team totals, and have better quarterbacks. So Deontay Johnson not totally out of play. I think that later in the week, Deontay Johnson could become a leverage play. He's currently coming in as the lowest owned wide receiver above $6,000, which probably doesn't shock anybody there, but it's not by a dramatic amount. It's barely less than Mike Evans. It's about the same as Deebo Samuel. So maybe as the week goes on, he starts to become a leverage play we can get to, but I think we can just get leverage by saying, hey, all these Dallas receivers are dirt cheap. And I get it. Lately, they're not producing, and they're not producing in the same game together. You had to be the Cedric Wilson game last time out. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper have not been going off together, have not really been going off all by themselves either, but the price points here are fair, and now it's the postseason. You have been seeing Amari see consistent volume. He's now had 7+ targets in 4 of his last 5 games, so the volume is there, especially if you expect him to potentially pass more in this one because San Fran's weakness is their secondary, but you're seeing CeeDee Lamb come off of games of 5, 4, and 2 targets. Is he playing through an injury? There's some rumors out there. CeeDee Lamb is currently the second highest owned wide receiver on the slate at 35%. This is how good this guy is, right? Because of his price point, he has not produced at all. The dude literally has barely 150 yards over the last 3 games. I mean, that's what some of these dudes are getting in a game to a game and a half. So there are some concerns when you're looking at this for CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper in terms of what their recent production has been, but I do think it's relatively going to lower their ownership. They're still going to be highly owned around 30%, but this would be much higher if they were coming off of dominating weeks. I like both of these guys. I think if you stack them both up with Dak Prescott and also maybe even triple stack it, you start to get a little bit unique here. Now, as we continue below $6,000 into this value range, I think that Devonta Smith is probably my favorite leverage play on the entire slate. I have Devonta Smith only coming in at 22%. They're going to play as underdogs in this game, so you know they're going to throw a little bit more and probably a lot more than they normally do in this game against Tampa Bay. You can't continue to run the ball when you're down by a 7-14 potentially at some point in the game. And Tampa Bay secondary is healthy now. They're getting some of their pass rush back, so that can hurt. But I'll take the chances. I'll take the chances on a number one receiver, by far number one receiver on a team who has the ability to beat people off the line of scrimmage and beat people deep. I'll take those chances and those odds at not only a low price point for decent volume, also low ownership. So Devonta Smith starts to become a play for me. Next up, you have Brandon Ayuk, definitely strongly in play. A solid run back option. The cheaper price point guy off of a Deebo Samuel. I like Brandon Ayuk a lot. I mean, you're having him over the last couple games, not seeing insane volume, 6 and 7 targets, but he has over 200 yards total in his last 2 games. You're not getting, this is the thing, he's a yards after the catch monster. That's what this whole entire offense is. But you're getting a cheap run back option. He's cheaper than George Kittle. He's cheaper than Deebo, right? He's cheaper than Elijah Mitchell. A cheap run back option in the passing game on the opposite side of this Dallas side. I'm probably only playing Brandon Ayuk if I'm playing a Dallas stack or trying to full-on skinny stack the game, because he's not a guy that I scream out, I have to go get that guy. He's only coming in right now at 15% ownership. I like that as a run back, and since I like Dallas a lot, I'm okay to get to Brandon Ayuk, who does have touchdown upside, seeing 5 red zone targets over his last 4 games. For Chase Claypool, you're seeing the volume come up. You're seeing 4 red zone targets over his last 3 games. He finally found the end zone in that last game to have 18 fantasy points. He remains in play here. They're going to have to pass somewhat. The problem is just the downfield usage isn't accurate because of Ben. Brashad Perriman, not really interested in. Cedric Wilson, it's hard not to be interested in. I think you can just go Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Amari, and Cedric Wilson, and I know they haven't all gone off in the same game so far this year, which is why nobody's going to play those 3 guys together, but they're also cheap, and if Dak goes out there and has a 3 to 4 touchdown game or a 300-yard game, it becomes more appealing. There's obviously downsides there. The only reason I'm really playing that is because I think there is a ceiling to it. These guys are fairly priced. They have a good team total, right? But the downside is San Francisco is able to run the ball. San Francisco is able to eat more clock or more time off the clock than you would like. Zeke maybe has a decent game, and now you're looking at Dak only throwing 32 times for 215 yards or 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? Then they're all not going to get there. So that's your risk of doing that on a 3-game slate, but you're putting all your eggs in a basket if you're full on stacking to be unique. And if that is the game that pops off, you have the Dak triple stack with Brandon Ayuk on the run back or Brandon Ayuk and Kittle, right? And you're really focusing on one game. And I think that's okay to do, especially if it's a game that has a 50.5 team implied total and Dallas has a 29-point team total, right? Cyril Grayson, I don't even know if he's going to play at this point. I don't even care if he plays. We mentioned it last week. This dude stinks, right? 11 catches coming into last week, 9 in his career, 9 the previous 2 weeks before that. I don't think there was much there for the former track star who has no separation ability. We scroll down to $4,000 and below. Hardman started to run some more routes. He remains in play. Tyler Johnson is running routes out of the slot. I mean, I think Leonard Fournette's really going to eat up a lot of the upside that he has. He'll stay in play if you want to build the Tampa Bay stack out and get a little bit unique with it. Byron Pringle remains in play as probably, honestly, it's tough to get to both Tyreek and Kelsey with Mahomes in the slate, so Pringle might be the next guy in. I'm not interested in Quez Watkins. I want to say I'm interested in Juwan Jennings, right? He came up big with the multiple touchdowns, 94 yards, but before that, you're seeing games of just 2 catches, 3, 1, 2, right? The snaps did come up to 63% in that game. They do like the guy, but he's firmly behind George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel in this offense. At $3,700, if you only had like $3,900 left or $3,700 left, you already had a stack going on for this game. I guess you can throw him in there, but the upside, I know he had the game to close out the year. He ran 27 routes, which is not like it's just a new role for him. He ran 32 routes earlier in the year, and then he dropped back down to 14, 16, and 14. He's clearly behind the other 3 studs in this offense, and also behind Elijah Mitchell, the priority in the running game. So like the 5th option in an offense who just popped off for his best game ever last week in a big spot to get them into the postseason, and now he's coming in at what? An inflated like 8% ownership when he normally be like 1% owned? I'm not too much on it. After that, in terms of cheap plays, McLeod doesn't have much downfield usage. He'll run 25 to 30 routes, so if you think he finds the end zone against KC, that's where he starts to come into play. DeMarcus Robinson, I'll always keep in play, and he'll always never produce for us, right? He's going to run 25 routes for the Chiefs. At some point, it's going to lead to a touchdown. Not much after that. James Washington, we'll see if he can return from C19, although he's been phased out because they don't throw downfield. And Ray-Ray McLeod is taken over because of Ben Roethlisberger. Jalen Reagor's on here at $3,100. He'll probably see somewhere around 4 targets in this game. Some guys have gone on IR like Arcega-Whiteside, although he wasn't really factored into this offense. So Reagor's here at $3,100. But if you're looking for a guy below $4,000 on the slate, I'll probably go to Jalen Reagor, but it doesn't feel great. Just go all the way down to $3,100. So that mid-range looks really appealing. These Dallas receivers, again, the ownership coming in on them doesn't feel that comfortable. If you're talking about the ceiling of some guys on the slate, yeah, obviously Tyreek has the highest ceiling. Lamb's going to come in after that. But then Amari and Devonta Smith, Smith start to come in. I think Devonta Smith is going to be way too low owned. Way too low owned for a guy who's going to come into this game and see 7 to 10 targets for a cheap price tag. Just way too low owned. Now, as we transition into the wide receiver position, I'll let you know my 2 favorite props for this slate right here. And those 2 props are going to be the over 55.5 receiving yards for Amari Cooper. This is 10 less than CeeDee Lamb's, and I just think that they're pretty damn similar in terms of their projections for receiving yards. I have Amari over that number, and I take George Kittle over 55.5 receiving yards. I think the matchup in the middle of the field for George Kittle is going to be a good one. I think Trevion Diggs against Deebo Samuel, nobody can lock down Deebo the way that he's used, but I think George Kittle is going to be heavily involved in the middle of this field, especially as an underdog where you would expect an extra 3 or 4 pass attempts for Jimmy G in this game, which might lead to an extra target naturally for George Kittle. So I take the over on those 2 players right there. If you use the code SAL, you go to prizepicks.com, linked in the description below. Use the code SAL. You can take that bet or any bet you want. You can take the props, over-unders on fantasy points, on anything you want for different sports, for NFL. You use the code SAL, you get a free bet, free bet up to $100. Check it out, link down below, prizepicks.com, code SAL to take advantage of that offer. Let's close up the program today with the tight end position, and this is a slate where we can go double tight end. When all the best tight ends in the NFL are on the same slate, right? The only guy not here is Darren Waller. When you have Travis Kelce, Gronk, George Kittle, hell, Dallas Goedert and Dalton Schultz this year. I mean, these are probably 5 of the top 7 producing, top 6 producing tight ends in the NFL for fantasy. I mean, let's just put it this way. If I took the top 3 tight ends, Kelce, Gronk, and Kittle, and put them at the wide receiver position this week, they would basically be my 4th, 5th, and 6th ties, tied right around there with the other wide receivers in terms of projections. And you are getting them to be similarly priced to those wide receivers, but again, a lot of people are reluctant to go double tight ends on a week where double tight ends could make a lot of sense, right? If you're not comfortable going, let's say, to a Deontay Johnson this week, you can go to a Travis Kelce instead in the flex. If you're not comfortable going to a CeeDee Lamb because he hasn't produced, you can go to a George Kittle or a Rob Gronkowski instead. So I think double tight end is firmly in play this week because it'll slightly make you more unique. It allows it to make it more easier to stack and game stack run backs of guys who have high upside at cheap price points. So the way that I look at it, if I had to prioritize them, and I love all these dudes, right? If I had to prioritize the top 3 guys, I'd say Gronk and Kittle I enjoy more. They're slightly cheaper for one. Gronk I think is going to see a massive target share, but it will be bumped down by Leonard Fournette. Do not forget that, the best play on the slate. And then Kittle is just a significant price difference for a guy I only have projected for 1 point less, right? That being said, it's very easily, depending on what your stack looks like, if you're playing Kansas City, it's very easily all 3 of these guys. Yes, I'm just trying to differentiate it a little bit. After that, we drop down to $5,000 flat. Dalton Schultz is there. He continues to see volume, red zone usage. Blake Jarwin is back now, though, which is going to lead to maybe more 2 tight end sets. We'll see if that affects Cedric Wilson a little bit. More 2 tight end sets means just in general, similar routes run for Schultz, but maybe not as much of a priority as he would be in 3 wide receiver sets when he's the main tight end on the field and can be the main read at the tight end position. Another way to get unique with your stacks of Dallas would be to play the tight end, right? To play the tight end in any of your stacks. You're going to get a little bit unique if you do a triple stack with a tight end in there. So if you're going to do Dak and Dalton Schultz and you also throw in there CeeDee Lamb and Amari, or you're going to do Jalen Hurts and Goddard and you're also going to throw in there Devon, you're naturally going to get different if you triple stack with a tight end. And the only real ways where I say to triple stack with a tight end on this slate is either the Chiefs with Byron Pringle and the top 2 studs, Tyreek and Kelce, or that Dallas example I just showed you. And because of that, I have Dalton Schultz on here as like an interest and not a priority, but if you're playing Dallas stacks, he becomes more of a priority. Dallas Goedert is fantastic. I don't know how Dallas Goedert is $4,400. Dallas Goedert is going to lead this team in targets. He basically led this team in targets on a per game basis during the regular season. I have Dallas Goedert relative to the $4,000 wide receivers. I have Dallas Goedert right now projected for 13 fantasy points this week. All of the dudes below $5,000 at the wide receiver position, none of them project out for 10 points for me. So this is the exact reason why double tight end is so damn good this week. This is all you have to do. Build out the same lineup you normally would and just put, instead of going in there and putting in McCole Hardman or putting in even Cedric Wilson or putting in a Brashad Perriman, just put in Dallas Goedert. So I'm going to be very bullish on double tight end, whether it's paying up for both of these studs in Kelce and Gronk or Kelce and Kittle. I'm completely fine doing that. Or if you're just floating around with your last guy in your lineup, I'm choosing Dallas Goedert over all of those below $5,000 wide receivers and definitely over the running backs below $5,000. The final tight ends, Pat Freiermuth does remain in play. The rookie out there, obviously he's a good red zone threat. I just don't know how much they get to the red zone with a 17-point implied total for a similar price point to Goedert in a much lower target share and a much worse quarterback, I would say. I'm going to go with Dallas Goedert there. So there's the tight end position. I think that ways to get very interesting on the slate. Double tight end is firmly in play. It might be the optimal approach. It's what I'm going to be trying to do. And then after that, full on stacking Casey and Dallas. The only other way I see that you can go with this slate is saying, yes, I want to take advantage of Jalen Hurts' mobile upside, which if that's the route that you're going to go, he only has like a 215.5 implied passing yards total. If you're going to try and take advantage of his mobile upside, probably don't double stack him. You can single stack him with Devonta or Goddard. I'd probably lean to go to Goddard there because he's cheaper and just in general, he's got a better target share per game. So that's where I would go because I don't want to double stack because Hurts is mainly getting you there, not because he's throwing for 300 yards and 3 tuds, because he's throwing for 200 and a touchdown, and then he's running in 1 to 2 on the ground with like 60 yards, right? That's where he's getting there, which doesn't help his receivers. So thank you for tuning in. The $1 million up first. We did the Saturday slate. Here's the Sunday slate. We'll be live before the game starts on Sunday, so be sure to be here. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already. All the tools that we've referenced in here, ownership projections, the optimizer, we have a Discord as well. We have rankings, we have key stats database, all on Patreon. Get in there down below. Join the community of 1,000 Discord members that are all having a good time. I'll see you all for the live stream for this video, and then we'll have Monday Night Football content for the $1 million contest for that game between Arizona and the Rams. You all rock, and I'll see you all in the next one.